Hello and welcome to day number 1 of our grip and wrist strength course. So I've got a few things that are here with me today that we're going to use, and I've got some Theraband is probably one of the more important things, as I mentioned that we were going to need. So what I've got is actually just a chopped off short version of the Theraband for today, and I've also got a long version here beside me. And one of the other things that we're going to need for today is a hammer, and that's not because we're planning on hammering anything, it's just a nice weight on the end of a lever. So if you don't have a hammer, you could also use something like a rolling pin, anything that's got a little bit of weight to it, because we're going to be using those later today. So as we go through this course, one of the things that I'm going to do for you is I'm just going to show you one side of the body. So I'm going to show you everything on the left, and rather than have you follow me through doing everything on one side and then everything on the other side, at the end of each video, I'll just remind you that you're going to want to do this on both sides. So I'm going to show you on one, and then I'm going to get you to do it on your own time on the other side. So you can either wait for the next video to start and hit pause, or you can just wait until the end of this one and then hit pause. So the first thing that we're going to do is going to be with the Theraband. So this is an exercise that's meant for a lot of the muscles that open our hand up, and it's going to work on what we call our extensor muscles. So this is the kind of exercise a lot of people don't do anything that's very much like this very often, and a lot of that is the reason why we get a lot of imbalances around the wrist and forearms and grip. So we're going to work on our extensor muscles, the muscles that open up the hand. So essentially all we're going to do is we're going to take our hand and put all of our fingers together. It doesn't have to be tightly gripped. We're going to put them all together like this. We're going to drape a Theraband over the top, and then we're going to use the Theraband as resistance to resist opening our hand up. So it's just going to be closed like this. We're going to drape it right over the top. Then you're probably just going to hold it in place with your other hand, and then you're just simply going to be doing this. You're just going to be opening straight up. This is one of the reasons that we want you to have a very gentle Theraband, because if you have a really tough Theraband, you're barely going to be able to move your hand at all. So all we want is to have fingers pointed like this. They can even be pointed forward a little bit. You're going to drape the band over top very loosely. If you pull too tight, it's going to get very hard. And then all we're going to do is just open up like that. So if you find that's too hard to start with your fingers touching like this, I'd encourage you to actually make a little platform. Spread them apart first, and then you're going to put the band over top like that so that your fingers are spread apart at the very beginning. And then all we got to do is open up. So you'll get this big spread that looks like this every single time you do it. So all I want you to do for now is you're just going to do 10 repetitions where you're going to start at the pointed position or something close to that. You're going to open all the way up. You're going to hold for a split second. Then you're going to let it relax and do it again 10 more times. Okay, start that now. You're probably figuring out that most people, this fatigues very, very quickly. That's because these are not muscles that we typically use very much. So a lot of the time, they fatigue much more quickly than our gripping muscles typically would. And I think we're at about 10 exercises there. So you're going to want to go ahead and repeat that on the other side. One thing that you'll notice as we go through this course is that a lot of your forearm muscles and your grip muscles, they're designed to do very little resistance activity repeatedly throughout the day. They're not designed to do things that take a lot of grip strength, although grip strength is really important for a lot of what we do. So when we do exercises that have this amount of resistance built into them, you're going to fatigue very, very quickly. That's entirely normal. So just know that for a lot of this course, especially if you've taken other courses during this one, you're going to have to actually take longer pauses in between exercises than most courses. And a lot of that is just purely because you're going to need a little bit of time for your forearm muscles and your hand muscles to recover in between each one of these exercises. So the next exercise, what we're going to do is use the band again, only this time we're going to be working on the muscles that keep our fingers together. So these are some of the most important muscles for the actual strength you have in your grip that allows you to hold on to things with a great amount of power. It's these tiny little muscles that bring your fingers together. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do one finger at a time. All we're going to do is we're going to take the band, we're going to drape it over like this, we're going to close our hand down, then we're just going to take the band and we're going to pull down just to the point where we can barely not fight it. So you don't want to pull so hard that you're pulling your finger way off to the side or causing yourself any kind of damage. All you want to do is pull just hard enough that you can barely hold onto it with the strength of your hand. So we're going to be doing something like that. So doing it with your hand curled is actually different than doing it with your hand straight. For now, I'd prefer that you do it somewhere that's comfortable for you. It doesn't matter which one. So get into that position now. Get the band kind of draped over your pinky finger, and then close your hand down. Do the same thing with your thumb. And then we're just going to do 10 gentle little pulls on the band. And I do mean gentle because your pinky finger does not have a whole lot of strength in it. We can pull a little harder as we get onto the other ones. Good, so there's about 10 there. You probably already feel the fatigue in the palm of your hand. We're going to move on right to the next finger and do the same thing here. So it's the same sort of thing. You can either wrap it around your ring finger and your pinky finger, or you can take your pinky finger out of it. It's entirely up to you. But we're going to be doing the same thing again. We're just going to wrap it around, bring all of our fingers together, and we're going to have some gentle pull straight down. Good, so we've got about 10 repetitions on that one. As soon as we're done 10 there, and if you need to take a break in between any of these fingers, please do. We're going to move right on to our middle finger. Going to do the same thing. Get it draped over these fingers here. And we're going to have it just like that with a nice gentle pull again for about 10 repetitions. Make sure it's gentle. Give that a start now. So you'll probably find a notable difference in how strong this part of your hand is compared to the other part of your hand, because your middle finger is going to have a lot to do with your grip strength. So it's going to be a lot stronger. Good. So once we've done that one, last one here, and we're going to do this one differently. Our pointer finger, because we don't have something to grip it against with the finger above, we're actually going to keep our hands spread. So you're going to keep our hands spread like this. Then you're going to drape the band right over the top. Keep them spread. I just want you to pull straight down like that. I'm going to do the same thing, 10 repetitions there. Good. So if we wanted to, we could do our thumb with this one. But for the vast majority of people, their thumb is actually not the main thing that is a limiter of their grip power and the way that their wrist and their hand works. And that's because we have a big chunk of muscle at the base of our thumb. There's more muscle in your thumb than any of the other fingers. So for most people, we're going to spend most of our time focusing on the other fingers because that's where we're going to make up most of the deficits in our grip and our wrist strength. So if you wanted to, you could actually go and repeat this exercise, not just by pulling down, but you could do the exact same thing pulling up, because it's actually going to work on a slightly different set of muscles. For now, the easiest thing to do is just to focus on them all pulling down like this. If you find that you get a lot out of this course when we get towards the end and you want to do some more on your own time, you're welcome to do the exact same thing where you wrap around a finger and you pull up. But the same kind of muscles are going to be at work. So we've done one side on the left. I want you to take a second and make sure you do the same thing on your right, going one finger at a time, very gently, for 10 repetitions per finger. So the next exercise you're going to need the hammer for. And the reason that we use a hammer is just purely because it's a weight that's at the end of the long lever. So the nice thing about this is that the weight of the hammer can get harder or easier depending on where you hold it. So if you hold very close to the front, to the top of the hammer where the weight is, then it becomes very easy to move around. And the further you go away, the harder it gets to move. So the main thing that we're going to be using this for today is what we call pronation. And so this is to actually have our hand fall to our knuckles up towards the ceiling and then come right back up again. So just due to some previous injuries, I don't have a huge amount of range of motion in this. So for me, when I demonstrate this to you, I'm only going to go to about here. But if you have the range of motion, I'd prefer that the hammer actually falls all the way until it's parallel to the floor and then comes straight back up again. So the easiest place to do this is just going to be on the edge of a table, just so that you can have your elbow kind of tucked in towards your side and you can let the hammer fall. So we're going to be doing 10 repetitions of this. If you find that this is too easy for you, you can also wrap the band around the edge of the hammer, or you can just get something heavier to do this with. If you find this is too hard for you, I'd encourage you to use something slightly lighter, like a rolling pin, or even just some utensils that you might have around in your kitchen. So we're going to be doing the same thing here. I want you to hold this straight across the front of the knuckles on your hand, so that the handle is going to be at the base of your knuckles. And we're just going to drop it down towards the floor 10 times slowly and come straight back up again. So as I said, if you've got the range of motion to go further than me, I'd encourage you to do that. A lot of people will. Let's just do one more here. We're coming up to 10. Good. So we've done that all on one side. I want you to make sure that you take the time and go and do it on the other side now. So the next exercise that we're going to do is also going to be using the hammer. And so one of the things that our hands do is they fold back and forth, they flex front to back, they also deviate side to side, almost like if you think of it as if you were waving side to side. So that is called radial and ulnar deviation. And a lot of that has to do with our ability to grip in different positions and do things like twist the tops of jars. So you're going to do the same thing with the hammer. You're going to take it in the same kind of position, only instead of having your hand right on top of the table or whatever it is that you're supported on, I want you to have your hand just barely off to the side. And that's because you're going to be doing essentially the same kind of movement, only instead of lowering down this way, where your palm is aimed towards the floor, your palm is still going to aim across your body. And what you're going to do is you're going to let it down towards the floor as if you're actually hammering something. And so it's almost like you're casting a fishing line or letting the hammer down slowly, and you're going to pull straight back up again. So try to keep your forearm from moving and just let your wrist do as much of the work as you can. Because I have other ranges of motion in my wrist that don't go very far, I've got a big range of motion in this. A lot of people won't have as much range of motion in this movement as I do. So just go as far down as you feel like your grip in your wrist will let you go, and then come right back up again. And we're going to do 10 repetitions like that. You can either have your thumb on the handle or your thumb wrapped around like mine is. It's up to you. 10 repetitions. Give that a start right now. Good. There's 10 there. Make sure to do the same thing on the other side. So the last exercise that we're going to do today has 2 steps to it. They're really easy steps. And it's the same thing. It's meant to work on the extensor muscles that are in your forearm that hold your fingers up against resistance. So we're not going to use any kind of implement. All we're going to use is just our wrist and hand, the way that they operate as it is. But this is actually still going to be one of the hardest things that you're going to do today. And the primary reason is because it operates in a range of motion that we don't typically operate in. So what we're going to do is have our hand in the same position. We're going to be supported at the elbow. We're going to flip our hand over as far as we can so that our palm is facing the floor if possible. If you're me, it won't be able to flip over that far. That's fine. But all you're going to do is a 2-step sequence. First, you're going to extend your wrist. Second, you're going to extend your fingers. Then you're going to undo it in the exact opposite order. So you're going to let your fingers relax, then let your wrist come back. So with a nice relaxed hand, you're going to extend your wrist, and then you're going to extend your fingers, and then you're going to flex your fingers and relax your wrist. This one's going to be really fatiguing for a lot of people. So if you can do 10 repetitions, I'd encourage you to try it. If you can't, I'd like you to try at least 5. So let's start that now. Extend, and then open your hand. Let your hand close, and then back again. And let's do 9 more. It's a pretty fatiguing exercise. I understand that that's probably going to be one of the hardest things that we do through this entire series of exercises. But that's it. That's all we've got for day number 1. Make sure you finish this last exercise on the other side before you call it quits for day number 1. But as you'll probably experience, there's going to be a lot of fatigue in your forearm now. So you want to make sure that you don't do this set of exercises before you have something that's going to be really demanding on your grip. And if you feel like your grip is particularly weak, it's really important that you also don't do this right before you go and do something like drive a car that could actually put you out of safety's way. So we just want to make sure that we're timing this appropriately because our grip is going to take a little bit of time to recover after we do these sorts of things. So just make sure that you're not doing it right before you really need your grip for something. For a lot of people, it's easiest to do at the end of the day. That's it for day number 1. Look forward to seeing you on day number 2.